Welcome to the Cambridge Tech Podcast, talking all things technology from the heart of the UK's tech capital. Here are your hosts, Faye Holland and James Parton.
Hi, I'm Faye.
And I'm James. Well, finally, it feels like I'm back into a proper work mode now after the jury service. So I've been a busy bee this week. Keeping in the theme of today's episode, I'm off to Norwich soon as well for the final of Hack Ed, which will be fun. So I might actually take our roving mic with me and see if we can grab some people to chat with for the podcast. No promises, though.
Well, I mean, take it with you. That's half the battle. Or you could always use your phone, you know.
That's true. I could, but I think that mic's actually really good, actually. I don't know where it is, but we'll...
Okay, maybe find that one first then.
Yeah. We also hosted a delegation from the Department of Trade with our friends at Barclays Eagle Labs, so that was good. And it gave our members a really good platform to feedback on a whole range of topics with a lot of time spent on grant funding. Anything
you can share there in terms of what they fed back, or...?
Yeah, I mean, just, you know, I guess no surprises really for anyone that's worked with Innovate UK grants and stuff like that. So just feedback in terms of the process of applying could be simpler, the kind of information they're looking for, the timing in terms of how long it takes to get responses back on if you've been successful or not. Match funding sometimes is a challenge, you know, so looking for flexibility there. Whole range of different things, really. Just a really good session. So yeah, it's nice to do those kinds of things.
And just while I think about it, James, on match funding, I found out a few weeks ago that the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority have actually got a fund. So if there's investment and it needs some match funding, they've actually got capital available. So it's definitely worth taking a look at them as well, because they're not probably the expected place that you would go, but their role is obviously to try and bolster and get growth underway. So they might be worth people looking at.
Yeah, that's good to know, actually, because, you know, we also mentioned that there's this whole kind of new industry that's growing up where people will lend you the money in advance of the grant money actually coming through and hitting your bank account. So it's kind of unintentionally created a whole new industry there as well. So yeah, that sounds really interesting. So I'll follow up with you on that one. And then, yeah, finally, I guess, caught up with Tabitha Goldstub. So regular listeners will remember she's been on the pod a couple of times now, actually, back in 47 and episode 56. So we were chatting about AI and the recent government AI opportunities paper. So that was great. How about you?
Do you know what? I actually don't have very much to share. I've been locked away. I came running into the Bradfield Centre once last week, but then just sat there doing meetings. But I'm just literally buried in delivery, so I kind of had to restrain myself from getting out and about too much.
That's a shame. You put me to shame the last couple of weeks, so guess it's my turn this week then to do the long update.
Yeah, I thought I'd take one for the team this week, you see, being a good player and all that. So should we move on to this week's news then? So first up, Cambridge medtech startup Anthrotech has been picked to work on a Hollywood blockbuster film whose identity is currently being kept under wraps. So Anthrotech is set to wow audiences with its pioneering hyper-realistic silicon innovation with applications in medical robotics and cinema. They began in the world of practical special effects, where the team crafted hyper-realistic prosthetics for films. Its deep expertise in biomimicry and technical orchestry naturally led to an expansion into medical simulation and human-centric design, designed to solve critical challenges in surgical training, prosthetics and robotics. So, wow, that's kind of a little bit of a step away from the normal day job, but, you know, great exposure for them.
Yeah, that's quite cool. Some Hollywood glamour this week. I love it. Cambridge Science Centre hosted a special event to honour the scientists and organisations that help bring its interactive lab space to life. The Superheroes event celebrated the contributions of experts from leading local companies, including Nuclera, AstraZeneca, Illumina and Alstone Medical, who share their time and expertise to inspire the next generation of scientists. A highlight of the event was a chance for the youngsters from Middleton Road Primary School to meet the scientists featured in the case studies in the lab space. The generosity of our local science community is what makes this space so special, said Rebecca Porter, who's the CEO of Cambridge Science Centre.
And it's great to hear from Rebecca, who's settling in very well as the new CEO there. Cambridge multi-unicorn Quantinuum has unveiled a groundbreaking generative quantum AI framework, GenQAI. That's a new one. The tech leverages genuinely unique quantum-generated data to enable applications in areas ranging from the development of new medicines, precise predictive modelling of financial markets, and real-time optimization of global logistics and supply chains. For the first time, data generated by Quantinuum's powerful H2 quantum computer can be harnessed to train AI systems, significantly enhancing the fidelity of AI models and allowing them to tackle challenges previously deemed unsolvable. Dr. Raj Hazra, who's president and CEO of Quantinuum, said, "We are at one of those moments where the hypothetical is becoming real, and the breakthroughs made possible by the precision of this quantum-generated data will create transformative commercial value across countless sectors."
Filtronic, who opened an engineering design centre at the Cambridge Science Park towards the end of last year, has just run a $20.9 million contract with SpaceX. The deal involves supplying radio frequency power amplifiers for the Starlink low orbit satellite system. Filtronic recently posted half-year revenue of £25.6 million, which is up $8.5 million year on year, and announced an operating profit of £6.8 million.
And finally, the Innovate UK Women in Innovation Awards saw 3 out of 50 national winners coming from Cambridge. The winners were Monica Saavedra of Lambda Energy, Emma Yates of Proteotype Diagnostics, and Binhui Xiao of Easy Digital. 3 really great examples, all from totally different sectors, just demonstrating the diversity of tech that we've got in Cambridge. So congratulations to all 3 women.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, that's the end of the news. Let's move on to today's episode. You'll remember back in episode 116, we covered the Innovation Hothouse competition in Norwich. Whilst we were there, we also took the opportunity to sit down with Nicola Hancock and Roz Bird to have a broader conversation about UEA, the Norwich Research Park, and the Norwich ecosystem. We also spoke to a couple of the companies based there, which we think you'll find really interesting. We're back in Norwich as a follow-up episode to last year's Innovation Hothouse. This time we want to talk a little bit more about what's happening in Norwich, and it's great to have Roz Bird back with us. And this time we'd like to welcome Nicola Hancock to the episode as well. So thanks both of you for taking the time to speak to us today.
Thanks very much indeed.
Why don't you start with introducing yourself? So Roz, let's have a refresh from you, please.
Sure, I'm Roz Bird. I'm the Chief Exec of Anglia Innovation Partnership. It's the campus management company for Norwich Research Park, and AIP was set up by the 4 research institutes and the university and the hospital back in 2012 as a way of helping the campus to work together and elevate its pitch and deliver impact from the publicly funded research, market the whole campus together. And I came in May 22 to pick up the baton, and here I am today with loads of good stuff to talk about.
Perfect. Thanks, Roz. And Nicola?
Yeah, hi, thanks very much for having me. So I'm Dr. Nicola Hancock. I'm Associate Pro Vice Chancellor for Innovation at the University of East Anglia. What does that mean? It means that I provide academic leadership for our fantastic innovation and impact work coming from the research from the university. So it's looking at how that research can extend beyond the walls of academia and how we can support our colleagues to do that. I'm also an associate professor of physiotherapy, so I have a background in health science and clinical practice. So I bring that health technology perspective to the role as well.
Thank you, Nicola. And I think that's where we're going to start with innovation and impact. So we're going to talk about lots of things on the podcast today, but regular listeners will remember we always talk about different startups and spinouts coming out of the universities. So tell us a little bit more about UEA. What are your ambitions for innovation and impact?
Yeah, thanks very much. So UEA is a research-intensive university. What that means is that research and innovation are really central to the university's mission. And I think it's really important that people understand how that work can impact across society. So the economy, in terms of policy, both cultural and commercial change can happen, of course, from the excellent research at the university. And we have 3 broad research themes. Not all of our research sits in the themes, but they represent a huge amount of what we do. which is climate UEA, creative UEA, and health UEA. And that provides us with a really fantastic cross-disciplinary platform from which we can explore our innovation ambition. And I think when we work interdisciplinary within and across those boundaries of faculties, it enables us to have that maverick thinking that leads to really ambitious, innovative growth. And the university itself ranks quite highly, in fact, very highly, in terms of the quality of its research and its impact in the previous research excellence framework.
And Nicola, are those three areas relatively evenly split, or is there one that's slightly higher than others?
In terms of innovation,
Yeah.
I would never rank one in front of the other. No, they're all evenly split. They have different impacts in different aspects of society, as well as talking across and to each other. Obviously, it's well known that UEA has a fantastic reputation for its climate science, but also our creative and cultural impacts are enormous, as are the impacts from our health, science, spinouts, technologies, etc. So, yeah, I certainly wouldn't rank one against the other. I could be in big trouble if I did that.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand. And so are there any success stories that you can highlight from the recent years that have come out of the university?
Yes, I think so. So we've had some fantastic awards for a couple of our spinouts very recently. The team from Virilitas, who do home-based fertility testing, male fertility testing, which is a really difficult area to address and underrepresented in science and innovation at the moment. So they're doing incredible work. They won recently at Cambridge Tech Week. I think it was a People's Choice Award. And we also have CellXL working in biocomposite materials, fantastic spin out. And they're working across the park, of course. That's based in UEA science. And they won Startup of the Year, I think, recently at Cambridge Tech Week. So we've got some really exciting work going on in the space.
Fantastic. And UEA is very much co-located with the Innovation Park. Roz, maybe you could give us a quick fly around of the park to describe the institutes and the buildings that are on the park and how they coexist and collaborate.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so it's a research park with 30,000 people on site every day, not including the patients that go to the hospital. So it's a significant size. It's got more microbiologists on site than anywhere else in the UK. In fact, it might even be the world. And microbiology is the kind of backbone of a lot of the successful work we do that our institutes, the University Hospital, are known for. You've got the John Innes Centre, which is about plant science and growing the food that we eat, how to improve yields, how to improve crops in climate change where things are getting more flooded or drought. And there's a growing population in the world. So it's very cool stuff. The Sainsbury Laboratory, which is next door to that, that's a Gatsby-funded research institute that looks at plant disease. And then beyond that, you've got the Quadram Institute. It was the old Institute for Food Research. They look at the microbiome of the gut, looking at the gut-brain axis, nutrition. Is food nutritious? When people make claims about new foods, can they prove those claims? They work with the Food Standards Agency. They do all the traffic light systems that go on the side of your processed food to say what's in it and whether it's nutritious or not. They work with the hospital. They've got the clinical research facility on site. So they're big into food nutrition, and it goes into health and prevention of disease. And then the Earlham Institute is very special. It's a genomics institute. So people listening from Cambridge would know the Sanger. And the Earlham Institute effectively came on board just after that. But they're looking not just at the human genome. They map the genome of life. They do other plants and animals. And what's really interesting, people might not know, is something like the genome for wheat is about 10 or plus times more complicated than the human genome because it's been on the planet a lot longer than humans have been. So it's a more complicated genome. So there's some really good work that they do, and that supports a lot of the companies that are on the campus, and they work with the institutes. They all work with each other. So the John Innes Centre, the Earlham Institute and Quadram, they're all BBSRC funded. They're government-funded research institutes, and that is 3 of BBSRC's 8 institutes nationally. So we've got 3 of the 8. Each is considered a national asset, but none of the other campuses actually have more than one. So it's really special to have that combination of 3 BBSRC-funded research institutes plus the Sainsbury Laboratory. Then we've got the University of East Anglia that Nicola was just talking about, which is absolutely amazing. They confer the degrees. They work in a very detailed way with all the institutes and support what they do. When the John Innes Centre first moved to the campus, they started working specifically with the University of East Anglia that came on board pretty much at the same time. And then the other institutes have benefited from that. What the University of East Anglia does, as well as having specialisms in research in its own right, and also, for example, they're number one for nutrition and work very closely with the Quadram Institute, is they also attract loads of great students. So there's 17,000 students that are on campus, and they love Norwich and they love Norfolk, and they get to know the place, they want to stay. And then you've got the hospital, which is a teaching hospital, and it's not just teaching doctors, it's nurses and care workers. And you've got medical research, which means that the hospital offers funding for any clinician that wants to do primary research. And what that does is it attracts better clinicians, actually. So that improves patient care. We've got a new chief exec of the hospital, and the NHS is grappling with all sorts, but I'm really excited about her appointment and the work that she's done in the last few months. So that's the 6 institutions that are on the board, along with the BBSRC and the John Innes Foundation, which is a charity. Then we've got 100,000 square feet of what we call third-party space, so offices and labs that we let out to companies that want to benefit from all the tech platforms that our researchers create and all of the skills of the people. And one of the main reasons why this place will be a mega success is the fundamentals are right. And what I mean by that is companies that come here need to be able to stay and grow. And to stay and grow, they need people that they can employ that are already in the area. And you can't make that up overnight. So since the 60s, that has happened. We have the 30,000 on site. We have the 17,000 students at UEA. We have 3,000 early career researchers that basically come for 3 years. They're in their mid-20s. They're thinking about where they're going to go next. And we can encourage them to be entrepreneurs and spin out a company, and we can support that. Or they can join one of the core companies like Colorifics that was shortlisted for the Earthshot Prize, or Tropic that's gene editing the banana is in top of its game globally. So the final thing to say is that it's 4 global markets that we serve, essentially. And that's important because they're the companies that are going to come and benefit. That's agri-biotech, food biotech, industrial biotechnology, and med tech. Sorry, you said give you a quick whistle-stop tour, but there's so much to say, but they're just the basics.
Can I come back in on the students? Because, of course, that's really central. We spoke about UEA's research intensive, and of course it is, but it's got this dual intensity across teaching and research, which is critical. And I think we know that the training of those entrepreneurial skills and the agility in providing that training is absolutely crucial for organisations, isn't it? And crucial for innovative growth. And that's something we do. We've got great strength in excellent education programmes around entrepreneurial skills, but also actually in funding. UEA has an investment fund, an enterprise fund that's invested a lot in our student and immediate postgrad enterprises and entrepreneurs. We had someone recently who said, I came here because my brother came here and he got such great support to start up his business. That's music to our ears, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because that drives the economic growth locally and nationally. And we want to encourage those students to have great employment opportunities throughout innovation in Norfolk and beyond.
So that's a perfect segue to the follow-up question. Roz, as you described, really impressive clustering, the collaboration underpinned by the great science and research. What specific programs are in place to encourage the entrepreneurship side of things? And again, one of my kind of bugbears is everyone always focuses on the founder and starting a company, but to the point about employment, you need the actual people to come in to those early stage companies and take that risk as well.
Yeah, so we have a campus-wide enterprise strategy. So each of the 6 institutions has its own people internally that work on knowledge exchange and technology transfer and manage IP and support entrepreneurs, like Nicola was saying. And then what we do is say, let's try and look at that campus-wide and create a critical mass, which we have done. So we launched a campus-wide enterprise strategy in May 22 when I first came in, and we said, anyone with an idea, come forward for assessment. You can go through the ICURE programme, which is Innovation and Commercialisation of University Research. It's a Innovate UK programme, and there's several different versions of it, and they're funded by different research councils. So if you're an academic, you can apply and get funding, and you can say, I think that what I'm working on is novel and I have a market for it. And Innovate UK and the teams that they bring in on the individual programmes, and they have cohorts every year, there's regularly something you can apply for. you can use that funding and support to consider the market that your product or service could be in. And you go out to industry and you get support to do that as an academic. And sometimes it's a steep learning curve for people and they haven't done it before and they're still doing their lab work and this. And it's a great experience of, yes, it was hard work and it's going to be like that if this is the route you want to take, but it's very rewarding. And it is one way, commercialising, of really making sure that what you're working on has impact out there in society or on the economy by creating jobs, by creating a company. So that's the first stage. And we ended up with a lot more people coming through that programme as a result of saying, by the way, we know that one of the reasons you might be reticent about going on those programmes is that when you come out the other side of it, several months later, and you have a confirmation that you have a business idea that could fly, there's a gap between that and the help and support and funding you need to get ready to go and pitch to a seed fund. So we filled that gap here from then. And that was Pete Jackson, who's the chair of Anglia Innovation Partnership, who's a serial entrepreneur, and Nick Goodwin, who's my COO, who worked together before my time and said, let's see if the board is interested in how to tackle that gap. And so they agreed a pre-seed fund that BBSRC and the John Innes Foundation have put money into. So we have, as AIP, £200,000 a year to offer anyone who's going through ICURE or who comes to us with a business idea. They can ask for up to 30,000. There's a board that reviews all of the applications, and then that money can be used to help them with the next steps. We also funded the Halo programme that Anglia Capital Group has run. We funded the creation of that. And so some of our entrepreneurs have been through that. And all of that work that I'm describing, that is nothing to do with an accelerator. That is all about great scientists who think they might want to go into business, giving them the chance to look at how that might work and helping them with business skills. And then as a result of creating that critical mass, so we had about 20 come out within about 9 months through the programme and applying for pre-seed funding. We've had another, I'd say 15 in the last 12 months. So we've got 30 plus groups and individuals that are in pre-seed. Maybe they've incorporated a company. That includes Virilitas and CellExcel that Nicola mentioned earlier. And then as a result of promoting that and saying this is what we're doing at things like our Enterprise Tuesday events, we've had Sapphire Capital and Deep Tech Innovation Fund and UK I2S and all of the various sort of seed funders who want to syndicate saying, how do we get early information about this pipeline of investable opportunities? And then as a result of that and conversations out in the market, we've now got growth funds like Greensphere Capital saying to us, how do we get early information? And I think what we've found is a lot of these investors knew about, say, the John Innes Centre or they knew about UEA, but they didn't realise there was the whole campus. So what AIP has done, we're not entrepreneurs, we're not scientists, we're just organising and promoting and being the sort of catalyst or the supporter, really, to convene and to organise pitching events and to help bring it all together.
And it's also worth commenting, you mentioned support, which is so important, isn't it? And having those support and those processes and structures in place might be worth bringing in here, Roz, the importance of the recent UKRI award that we've had, which it's really for a virtual technology transfer office that encompasses all the institutes across the park. And that's in order to harmonise that TTO delivery and really bring some efficiencies and help support in our sort of acceleration of innovation and spin-out development. So we're really pleased to have had that award recently as well. It's entitled NR Forward. You may notice the postcode pun in there.
The thing that fits into and what Nicola's talking about there and what I'm talking about is creating the right environment, the right ecosystem to support entrepreneurs, startup businesses, spin-outs from our research committee, spin-ins from places like Cambridge or IndieBio in San Francisco that want to benefit from the facilities we've got on site, high growth companies that might have grown somewhere else and then come to us, or they've become a high growth company and they need support. And there's three things they need. They need funding. And that seems to not be too difficult in terms of talking to the right people. And there's lots and lots of different funds out there. And there's nothing is exclusive in any of our agreements. We want to syndicate and probably create a kind of a stable of investors, a bit like Y Combinator has done. The second thing is to have people and support. So that's the specialist skills and technology platforms that I talked about earlier. And then the third thing is the right level of accommodation. Because the smart companies, the ones that are spin-outs from places like IndieBio say to me, Roz, when you talked about getting a real estate investor, is that really going to happen? Because our investors are saying to us, if you go to Norwich, will you be able to stay and grow there? And that's why the Vengrove announcement, the real estate investment and the start on site next year with our first new spec lab and office building for growing businesses is really important. You need all of that in combination. You need the funding, you need the specialist people and skills, and you need the accommodation. And that's why I'm really excited today. And it's great to talk with you about it all ahead of Enterprise Tuesday, where I'm going to really underline that with everybody. It's our sixth one. We've been talking to the people in the audience, the local people, the professional services, the people on the campus saying, we need to get that right. And we now have that in the bag. So it's not that it's done. It's that we're just now at the start, but the foundations are right. And the bit that I haven't mentioned that I mustn't forget to say is looking at an accelerator or venture builder program. The reason that I was quite clear in saying what we're doing so far is not that, is because when we think about acceleration, we're thinking about how do you truly accelerate a business. That is not about an individual. That is about a business that has a market, and that our accelerator would be the right place to help grow that company because we know the market, we can support that business, and we can see that growth trajectory. And that is where we're going to work in partnership with some cool people to get that launched next year.
It's really exciting what you've just shared with us. And I think the key thing that's coming across is it is so joined up, which I think is super positive. And you'll be pleased to know that we did actually manage to speak to a couple of the companies that you've referred to. Certainly the first one, we spoke to Sophie Vaud, Head of Microbial Engineering at Colorifics. Hi, Sophie. Can you tell us what Colorifics does, please?
Colorifics is developing sustainable dyes using biology for application in the textile industry.
Why is that actually needed? You're replacing a very toxic way of normally producing colours and dyes. Why is it needed?
Our company was founded originally to improve water quality in areas where the dyeing industry is present. And the reason for that is that our co-founders, Jim Agioka, our CSO, and Oran Yarkoni, our CEO, were originally working at the University of Cambridge to develop an arsenic biosensor. And during one of their field trips in Southeast Asia, they realized that arsenic was part of the polluting issue, but so were dyes from the local dyeing industry that is heavily present there. And they thought there was a better way. And that's how it started. And now we have a fully integrated dyeing technology that is using biology and removes harsh chemistry from the wet processing and dyeing process. Knowing that the fresh water is actually polluted, 17 to 20% of it is polluted due to dyeing industry and activities, looking at removing the toxic chemicals, the dyes, but also the chemical auxiliaries that help to deposit and bind the dyes onto fabric is very important. And using biology, it is actually possible to do that.
It's absolutely fascinating. And it's things like, as a normal consumer, you don't realise that all of these things are necessarily happening. But it's great work that you're doing. And you mentioned then that the concept, the idea started in Cambridge, but actually the company was founded here in Norwich, wasn't it?
Yes, the company moved to the Norwich Research Park, the Innovation Centre, in 2019. And since then, we have actually expanded within the Innovation Centre, but also last August in the Earlham Barnes building on the other side of the campus. And we are very happy and then I think very lucky to have such a nice space to work in.
Yeah, so we talked to Roz earlier on and she was saying about the importance of companies being here and there being people to hire. So if you're going through that level of growth, what's the recruitment and hiring process been like for you?
So it really depends on the position because we are a multidisciplinary company. We hire bioinformaticians, textile engineers, or biologists. But being on the Norwich Research Park has been very helpful for us to find people from the University of East Anglia or the other research centers around. And it's not that far from Cambridge as well, so we can attract talents from Cambridge. And we do have a pilot site in Cambridge where we actually recruit from.
That's great. And so what's next for Colorifics? You've been going through some extensive growth over the last few years. What are you looking to achieve next?
Yeah, so we are already operating at commercial scale in different geographies. So now it's doing it better, doing more of it. We are saving up to 77% of water consumption compared to a traditional dyeing process. So that means the more the industry adopts our technology, the more we can save water and the less toxic chemicals are being used to dye clothes.
That's great. Thank you so much for your time and coming and telling us a little bit more, Sophie.
Thank you very much.
And we also spoke with Rory Hornby from Allura, who have recently landed in Norwich. So Rory, thanks for taking some time today. Why don't we start off with just a quick background on the company and what you guys do?
Yeah, and it's fantastic to be here. At Allura, we always call ourselves the Ocean Agriculture Company. And what we've done is found a way to grow all of our conventional crops floating on the surface of the ocean. So starting with rice, we're able to learn from nature. You think about your seagrasses and mangroves. These ecosystems are some of the world's most productive, and they thrive in that high salt environment. And we thought, why can't all of our crops? So we've gone into their genomes, looked at the most effective genes for targeting that high salt tolerance. What we do is we just switch them on and then off we go.
Wow, okay. You make that sound easy. I'm sure that's incredibly complicated. Is this a unique idea? You the only people in the world doing this?
Salt tolerance has definitely been an area of research for decades, far longer than I've been doing it for. But we're the only ones that are thinking about it for applications on the ocean. And the real reason behind that is our mission is to solve world hunger, which I know is no small statement in itself, but we want to reimagine how we think of agriculture as a way that can be truly sustainable, not just for the people, but also for our planet and our climate. And moving our agricultural system to the ocean means that we don't rely on any fresh water, any land, or any fertilizers, all whilst being carbon negative. And really, when you're thinking about all of those different additive effects, that's where we have that real goal of solving world hunger.
And what's the knock-on effect to growing the crops in the ocean to the kind of biodiversity or the ecosystem in the ocean?
Yeah, it's something that's been really important to both me and my co-founder Luke as we've founded this company. And we actually show that we increase biodiversity. We've run pilots in Singapore where we've been able to show that and demonstrate that. And that's because these farms and the plants on them, they act a bit like a mangrove forest where those root systems provide a new habitat for whether that be young fish fry or other crustaceans to then grow and thrive. So we actually rejuvenate an ecosystem after the impacts of whether that be climate change or overfishing. So
sounds really impressive. So what are the barriers to entry? Who are your target customers? Who do you need to go seek permission to grow crops on the ocean?
It's definitely an interesting question, that one. And one of the challenges of being the first company and the first people to really do that is that we're treading a new path. And that does come with a lot of regulatory hurdles, just because it's not really been encountered much before. But we've broken down our business model into two main sections to allow that ease of entry. And the first one is for land application. So right now, around a third of all agriculture is impacted by salt, whether that's sea level rise or climate change, overuse of fertilizers. And we target that area. We're able to restore productivity to those farmers at risk and produce even more food than ever before. And that's a stepping stone. It gets people using our crops, understanding the technology, overcoming that adoption, which is a big problem in agriculture. Building that trust is really important. And then that is a stepping stone to being able to go on the ocean. And we're already working with policymakers in the UN, the White House, to pave that way to be able to support not just the platforms, but also the growing on the surface of the ocean.
And you've had quite an international journey to this point in time. Do you want to walk us through those steps you've taken? And you ended up in Norwich. What was the reason for coming to Norwich?
Yeah, we've done a full circle with our journey. So me and my co-founder, we grew up in Yorkshire. That's almost where the idea was born. And back in 2019, we had our pre-seed funding as part of the IndieBio Accelerator to move to San Francisco. Silicon Valley, one of the best places in the world for startups, especially biotech. And that's really the beginnings of when Allura became official. And then during the pandemic, we moved north to Canada. Felt like a good place to hunker down and focus on our R&D. But whilst we were getting to the end of our tenure there, we were thinking, where do we want to scale? Where do we want to grow? where do we want to put down our roots? And as an ocean agriculture company, being close to the ocean is a little bit of a benefit. And we were based near Toronto, which is quite a long way from the ocean. And we look globally, from San Francisco to Boston to Amsterdam and also Norwich. And we found that here in Norwich, there was that perfect marrying up of a lot of opportunity to grow. The space here provided at the Norwich Research Park is amazing, but also the contacts with the Earlham Institute, John Innes Centre, there's just so much at our fingertips. And we had the best of both worlds there. We've got this amazing talent, amazing space to grow, without the price point of America and Silicon Valley and California. So it's almost combining all the best parts to be able to flourish here. And that's what we've been doing this year.
That's fantastic. And we really look forward to tracking your progress.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much for coming onto the episode. We've just heard from two of those companies really reiterating the points that you've made. And it's just such a vibrant community. So thank you so much for taking the time to record with us. And I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more from you.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having us. Brilliant. Thank you.
Today's show was produced by Carl Homer of Cambridge TV and supported by our media partner, Business Weekly. The Cambridge Tech Podcast is available on all major podcast platforms and on cambridgetechpodcast.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. It'll really help others discover the show.